right, today we've got a fun one. We frequently get asked what things were like when we started or how we got started or what lessons have we learned over the years. So we figured we'd rewind a little bit and answer some of those to get an idea of where we came from and how we got to Greenleaf now, almost 15 years later. So we started 2008, December 15th. So I guess that first year, there wasn't a whole lot that happened. We had 15 days, 16 days.
We paid our EIN fees.
We did that, and we bought our first single-family rental house.
Yeah, 5580 Meadowwood.
So that was the first rental house that we bought together, and we did that right at the end of 2008. 2009.
Working on problems that needed to be solved in the industry. I mean, the market wasn't so hot at that moment in time, and we were looking at single families mostly, and looking for opportunities to help homeowners solve a problem. So homeowners were mostly upside down on their mortgage. They couldn't sell their houses, and brokers didn't really have a solution for them. That's where we came in and offered them an alternative and convinced them to lease out their home.
For most people, this was not an investment property. This was a home that they either couldn't sell or needed to do something with. And we got about 50 single-family rentals through that process where we managed them and rented them out. And then we bought a few along the way, too. I think we bought 4 or 5 single-family homes during 2009. But we were able to identify, solve a problem that really helped start growing the business.
2010.
A new decade.
A whole new
decade. 2010, we started expanding into this student housing segment. And this really came from an opportunity from one of our single-family owners who happened to have a bunch of single-family properties that happened to be rented to students. So we jumped headfirst into renting to student housing, and man, did that come up with some excellent stories. I think we got into this, and then some of the best ones. Renting to students is always an adventure. They had a party, and this is a little neighborhood of all these single-family homes. They look very cute. And we get there, and we're like, what in the heck happened? I mean, there's beer cans all over the yards. They ripped every street sign out of the road. Street sign, like stop signs, are just lying on the ground and street signs.
They made like a trophy pile. They put.
I was like, "What are you guys doing? This is the only little neighborhood. You guys live in this thing." And talking to our guys, they were like, "Guys, you need to put the street signs back." Sure enough, later that day, they're all back in place. But it was just, oh my gosh, a little bit of a, different properties are very different.
Yes.
So we were going from families renting single-family properties to students having keg parties, and they had a great time, but a little different management style.
This is the phase of the business that you say yes to everything, and sometimes you explore some things that you didn't know you were getting into.
Yes, it was quite the adventure, but we learned a bunch in the student housing space. It got us very much into utilizing software, very much more on the residential side, and we got a couple hundred student housing units in the end of that we were operating. We built some, and it was a good learning experience for us.
So 2011, the year we quit our jobs, and we became official full-time Greenleafers.
Yes, it was. It was also the year we made our worst budget ever. So we purchased a deal in town Atlanta, or downtown. What do you call that area?
Old Fourth Ward.
Yeah. Off Edgewood Avenue, and we came up with a plan where we're going to renovate this old apartment building, and we budgeted about. When we were kind of guessing here, we budgeted $72,000 and change to renovate 11 units, of which we had zero buffer, zero labor costs, and no contingency. So our contingency was that we would just do it all, and we did that. We renovated all 11 units ourselves, so we were definitely
the free labor.
Yeah, we were the free labor on that one. But man, did we learn a lot from. We had day workers that we were picking up at the time, and that was much more common probably 10 years ago, where we'd pick up these guys and we wanted to sand a concrete floor on the inside of the building, and they lasted about an hour. They're like, we're not doing this. And I was like, okay. They quit on the spot and made us take them back home. So it just left the two of us to sand and stain these concrete floors in the building. So a little bit of hard work, but we had an asset that we knew everything about once we had fully done the renovation ourselves.
Yeah, I think our $72,000 budget was spent on appliances, cabinets, and countertops and tile. And that was $72,000 even. Everything else we had to just figure out.
Yep. 2012.
2012 was a huge year for us. Our first $1 million property. Well, just shy of it.
You're rounding up here. We bought the Pines. This was a deal we bought for $900,000, and it was 66,000 square feet. It was 68 units at the time. We added a few units into basements, but we paid basically $13 a square foot for this deal. It was one of the cheapest places we've ever bought.
Yeah, and it came with a swimming pool.
It came with a swimming pool. It came with a fire hydrant that was on. Literally just spraying water into the street. That was like the day we got it, is spraying water. Like, how the heck do you turn off a fire hydrant?
It's like the splash pad next to the swimming pool.
And it was Jose, our manager at the time. He's like, we just hit it with a sledgehammer hard enough, and we eventually got the fire hydrant the knob to turn and turn off. So, oh man, that was an adventure.
We learned a ton about multifamily construction. I mean, this was our first really kind of multi-tiered property that had, a second, a first, and then there was the terrace level units that we very quickly learned kind of the direction of gravity and plumbing pipes and how all that works.
Where everything flows to.
Yeah.
They flow to the terrace levels.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think our biggest lesson there was just not to be afraid. Don't be afraid. Figure it out. Get in there. Get your hands dirty and figure out what's going on. Next up is 2013.
2013 was one of my favorite memories of buying a property. There was a woman named Barbara that called us up asking us to property manage her roughly 53 units in Lilburn. And we were excited, like, wow, we can, this is a lot of units to manage on one site. It's going to grow our multifamily portfolio. So we drive out there, met with Barbara, and we were talking it through, and we said, Barbara, we'd love to buy this from you. She looks at it, she's like, you would? Who buys these things? Like, oh, we'd love to buy it from you. We can give you like $1 million. She's like, you would give me $1 million? It blew her mind. So we bought Lilburn, and Lilburn was a huge success. We bought it for about $22,000 and change per unit, and it was a big win for us.
It was a great deal.
Yeah.
That definitely grew our multifamily portfolio because we were still managing stuff, and then we also had this pool that we were buying as well actively. So as our team was getting bigger, we learned more about the management side, not only property management, but management of people. So also at Lilburn, probably one of the funniest, I mean, we've got a couple funny stories on stuff over the years, but this one, we're doing the renovation on Lilburn, and we did everything from roofs and siding and windows, doors, interiors, everything. We're doing some exterior work, and it came with this classic pool from like the 60s or
it was leaking everywhere. Yeah. It was just a mess.
But it was one of those old school, it just had a sidewalk right around a circular pool. There's no like pool deck, anything. It's just a sidewalk, and you could fall right into the pool. And the pool wasn't full at the time, so it was down, right? There's a lot of kind of down stuff around this time frame, and the pool's down, and we're talking with our team. We're like, okay, guys, we want to fill this thing in, and we're just gonna turn this whole area into grass. Right here, it'll be grass. Take the fences down. It'll be a lot easier to maintain. People can use some green space. At least have some grass. So like, perfect. Okay, let's get started. And you've seen as we had other assets at the time too. We're going back and forth, and we come back about 2 days later, and we're like, all right, let's go check and see how the pool project is doing. And we get there, and sure enough, I mean, there's grass down, but all they did was fill in the pool with dirt and put grass down. So they left all the curbing, they left all the whole pool in the ground. So eventually, if it rained, it would just fill up with water and turn into a swamp. And we were like, we meant take the pool out and then turn it into grass. And that's, as you're getting started or you're managing, or I think communication is important. And yes, understanding exactly, having a clear direction of what you want to get done and how, things will work out much better when you ask to make sure the feedback loop is complete. You know what you're planning to do. So we had a pool with a lot of dirt in it that we had to then go take back out and then take the pool apart and then put it all back. So it's quite an adventure, but definitely entertaining to walk out there and see a pool that's just filled with dirt with grass on top of it. So yes, communication is key.
2014.
It's a good year. It's a very good year.
Good
but
vintage.
Also good vintage. I mean, everything we bought in 2014 was good. Mm-hmm. But as we started to buy more, we started realizing that we needed to have some clarity in operations. You heard about our past communication issues. So we're like, okay, let's work on our communication. And what better place to start than the movie Office Space?
Yeah, Office Space was, a huge hit. What, late 90s, maybe 2000?
I don't think it was ever a huge hit.
Yeah, it was a huge hit. Come on. It was huge in my
I think it grossed like $12 million total as a film, so I don't think it was a huge hit. But it had some very good lessons.
Yes.
I think the best lesson we took away from Office Space was TPS reports. Mm-hmm. And it's just, if you've ever seen the movie, we didn't want to have a business that was ultra serious, but yet we still needed to do a good job. And they just rip on the fact that there's kind of all these useless reports in corporate America. Like, what are we doing this report for? Called TPS reports. And we never came up with a name for what it meant to us. But what we implemented was every Wednesday, our team goes through the metrics of a property, from how we're doing on budget income, budget expenses, capital improvements, and then also what goals are people working on. So we really have these 4 metrics that we're looking at. And we didn't have a name for the report other than, hey, let's get together and make sure we're all on the same page on Wednesdays. So we called it TPS reports. So 2014, we learned we needed some way to actually communicate effectively with one another. We came up with our TPS reports. 2016.
2016 was a huge year. We sold our first 300-unit complex and realized equity gains. A guy from New York came to Atlanta, and he was looking to buy as much as he could, and we sold for $55,000 a unit, which at that time was a grand slam home run. We had bought most of these properties for $25,000, $35,000, $45,000 a unit, and selling at $55,000 was unheard of at the time.
It may have been the first one over 50 that we had seen that had traded. So valuations obviously have gone up a bunch since 2016, but at the time in the market we were in, we cleared over $10,000 in gains per unit on that apartment deal. It was still the biggest apartment deal we've ever owned. Think about it. In 2016, we feel like we made a great decision. We over doubled our equity on that position. So it was a very successful transaction. And, I think when you're looking at these things at the time, you have to make the best decision you can with the information you have at that point. So we had a great sale. We were able to take that and roll it into a bunch more deals that we bought after that.
2017.
Yeah, this is the year we started buying mobile home parks. So this asset class it's been around for a long time, but it's also something we frequently saw when we were going between the apartment communities that we owned. So we're driving around and you're seeing other mobile home parks. Like, okay, could we operate these? Could they function similar to apartments? And if you are familiar with mobile homes at all, that communities have a mixture of park-owned properties or resident-owned properties. So they've kind of got this unique operating dynamic where it's a little messy. And we were like, sounds perfect for us. We like messy, and we can figure this out. So we bought our first mobile home parks in 2017 with a plan of simply providing operational stability into them. And we were able to identify an asset class that benefited greatly from bringing in professional management.
And from an operational standpoint, we were able to leverage our staff and our team that were already in the market, already operating workforce housing, and it all integrated very well.
2019.
This is a great year. We sold Don Juan and Pinewood, 2 of our marquee assets.
Don Juan was our marquee asset.
and we 1031 exchanged, so tax deferred exchange, into TVTC, which is the Tennessee Valley Tech Center, which is 50% leased to the state of Tennessee.
Yeah. For us, that was really a shift from entrepreneurial operations to organizational operations. Managing or dealing with the state of Tennessee is very different than managing an individual single family or apartment rental unit. So in doing this, we took our residential assets and we sold those at basically like a 4 cap. And we were able to purchase the TVTC building north of an 8 cap. So we went from essentially our equity deployed, we doubled our revenue. So by buying something at an 8 cap versus a 4 cap that we sold it at, we were able to generate twice as much revenue on the same equity dollars and convert our guarantee from an affordable housing individual to a state government entity. State of Tennessee entity. So for us, that was a big shift in really how we operate a deal. The state of Tennessee is a much different tenant to work with than an individual. So that also required us, and kind of our push going from entrepreneurial, where we look at our past years, or Josh, you and I are out there, figuring things out very much in the weeds, to organizational, to building an organization that collectively as a team can go solve problems and figure things out and come up with ways to routinely perform anything that has to get done.
Exactly.
So, so a big shift there, entrepreneurial to organizational.
2020.
We'll fly through this one, hopefully quick, but one positive. One thing we learned too is it definitely tested our ability to work flexibly. So we've kind of always been investing in different modes of technology. We were probably one of the first people to sign up for Workplace, which is like Facebook for work. We've always utilized software as a service and online applications to manage our business. And during 2020, it enabled us to seamlessly go from full-time in the office to at-home or flexible arrangements. And it didn't really hamper anything that we were doing from a work product-wise. So I think if we look at 2020 and what we learned there, it was really just continually to invest in technology to help make the business operate smoother was key. And therefore, we saw minimal hiccups operationally from everything that happened in 2020.
As we took that approach, we strengthened. We looked at our property and say, hey, where do we have strengths? Where do we have weaknesses? And we really focused on building our balance sheets and building our reserves for our properties, and putting a much stricter discipline around carrying cash and stabilizing our books.
Yeah. Just carries on that theme from entrepreneurial to organizational as you look to make organizational-wide improvements and make sure your business plan matches that cohesively. 2022.
This is more of a story of the tale of 2 years shoved into one.
Yes, I think we could combine 2021 into the first half of 2022, and the market was phenomenal and doing great. And then interest rates went up and kind of pumps the brakes on the market as a whole in the real estate world.
Exactly.
So rates going up, we definitely saw impacts of the business with things slowing down. But on the other sense of that, we've, banks, there was a ton of bank consolidation as the market was great going in 2020, 2021, into 2022. And that's really something we've talked about, and something that's catching up with us now, as we've seen different banks operate differently with what other kind of debt they want to be in or what debt they don't want to be in, how their bank fees work and don't work. We've seen a lot of our rates that we get charged for banks fees change dramatically at some banks and really go way up. We've seen banks that are now paying interest on deposits and some that still are not. And then we've seen banks that are moving in and out of different asset classes from a lending standpoint based on who acquired them. So it's kind of this constantly revolving door of banks that's really added some challenges. And when we think about the loans that we have, the majority of the debt we have placed, we converted to fixed debt with agency, especially on the residential side. All of our residential is over to agency. So it insulates us a little bit from the bank kind of merger stuff, but a lot of our commercial asset debt is with banks.
Yes.
So we have that exposure there.
Yeah, and when on most of our commercial assets, we locked in 5-year fixed rate debt, or we've actually worked with some life insurance companies where we've locked in 10-year fixed rate debt with them. So we're in pretty good position. Part of Dave and I's philosophy as we built this business was always being long-term minded and locking in interest rates for the long term. So this is a really good example of what happens in the short term, that if you get pinched and you have to refi, you have to sell, you have to deal with the market rate interest rates, this is not a great environment to be forced to move a loan.
Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest thing for 2022. And hopefully we're going to come back here in another 2, 3, 5, 10 years and keep adding to this and share some more experiences we have over the years as we continue to build and run Greenleaf together. For more tips on operating and investing in real estate, please check us out at greenleafmanagement.com or find us on YouTube and Spotify.